Welcome back. This is Chapter 2, Considering Self, Part 2. So in the first video, we talked about the components of self, which are self-awareness, self-concept, and self-esteem. Then we talked about some sources of self, so how our family, our gender, and our culture have an effect on how we develop our sense of self. Now let's move on to presenting yourself. So we all have a public face that we present to others. You can think of face as the person that you want to project out into the world, how you're managing your identity out there. Now sometimes we present a mask, which is a public self that we use to veil who we really are, our private self. This can be because we're hiding something, maybe we're ashamed of something we've done and we're hiding that, or maybe we fear being rejected and we think that some aspect of ourselves will not be easily accepted or appreciated by others, and therefore we wear a mask. Now some things to keep in mind when it comes to presenting yourself is that you want to be aware of how you present your public face. Now keep in mind, sometimes when we have our public face out there, people come to realize that that's not exactly who you are saying you really are. And so at those cases, when your public face is contradicted, you lose face. Losing face can bring about embarrassment, shame, humiliation, and sadness. Additionally, losing face can cause other people to question if you've ever really been true to them. Who's the real you? People may think that you have put out this fake persona and that the real you is completely unknown. Now, some things you want to keep in mind when it comes to maintaining face is that you want to use words and actions that are consistent with your public face. And anytime when your public face seems like it's being contradicted, when you make any missteps, go ahead and acknowledge those mistakes and apologize immediately without making excuses for them. One thing to keep in mind, it's very easy to present yourself online. And because of this issue, your book points out some issues that you need to consider. So if you've ever seen the MTV TV show Catfish, you realize that there's this phenomena that people have used a fake profile picture, have pretended to be someone else, often someone maybe prettier or smarter or funnier, and have rejected that person as their real self. And then when you actually meet the person, you realize you are nothing like your picture. That's an issue of presenting oneself online. Because there's so many freedoms in how we present ourselves, we need to be aware that we need to choose appropriate profile pictures and use things that really represent who we are. Remember that when it comes to online communication, it is all about the visual. People see photos, people see videos. Those are the things that people are taking into account as your sense of self. Also keep in mind that what you say, what you post online is very important as well, because in some ways these are also affecting the self that you're presenting out to the world. So the ultimate benchmark for whether you should put it up online is the interview test. Would you feel comfortable sharing this information in an interview? If the answer is yes, go ahead and post. If the answer is no, you probably want to reconsider if it's actually something that needs to go online. Also keep in mind what others are posting about you. This brings us to the warranting value. Your book defines this as the way that people assess the truth value of information online. So basically, information presented about you by other people is always going to be considered more believable than what you post about yourself. For example, you probably have great pictures posted on your social media where you are posing in your business professional, or maybe you are doing charity work, or maybe you are exploring a new place. But your friends and family members, well, they don't care about posting the picture of you wearing your ugly sweater from the Christmas party, even though that may be a little uncomfortable for you. So when people look at your pictures, they'll say, oh, ugly sweater person, now that's the real person right there. So keep those things in mind. Now let's talk about the relational self, who we are when it comes to our relationships. This brings us to one of my favorite theories, social penetration theory. So social penetration theory really just says that people are like onions. If you've ever seen the movie Shrek, there's at one point where Shrek says ogres are like onions. They have lots and lots of layers. Just like ogres and just like onions, people have lots and lots of layers. And sometimes going too quickly to the center can cause your eyes to burn or cause you to have some pain. So first there's the peripheral layers, the outside layers, the basic information such as demographics like how old you are, your race, your gender, the things you like to do. Those things are outside things. We probably don't care to let people know those things because, again, most people can probably see those things about you, or those are the little small parts about you. Next comes the intermediate layers. Now these layers usually are our attitudes about somewhat important matters but not too important. So your favorite music, your favorite food, maybe some of your political preferences. Those things are going to be the intermediate layer. It's going to take a while before people get to know those things about you. Then comes our central layers. This is the core of the onion. This is that information that really connects to your self-awareness, your self-concept, and your self-esteem. Because it's going to be who you really are, all the way down from your core beliefs, your core values, to distinctive personality traits. So maybe those quirks, those fears that you have that you don't readily tell people, and you only tell the people who have come closest to you. As we get into relationships, normally we get closer and closer to the core of someone. So sometimes we have to deal with the breadth, the amount of information that we learn about someone. And then we also have the depth, how deeply we get to somebody's core. Now this information is reflected in the Johari window. Now the Johari window was named after a researcher, Johari, and Johari came up with the idea of how to measure intimacy in a relationship over time. Now in the picture here you'll see that it shows open self, blind self, hidden self, and unknown self. I think in your textbook, open self is referred to as the public area, so just keep that in mind as I go through with this information here. So open self or public self. This is information about yourself that you and others know. So maybe your hair color, or maybe your gender, your race, those things that are just very readily available. Then there's blind self. This is information you don't know, but others know about you. So you may think, oh, well, there's nothing special about me. But maybe other people are saying, oh, wow, you're really talented when it comes to public speaking. And that's something that you don't know, but that other people do know. So that would be a blind area for you. Then there's the hidden self. This is information that you know about yourself, but others don't know. So this would be all of those secrets that you keep within yourself, the core information that you don't readily tell other people. And then the unknown self. So this is information about yourself that neither you or other people know. So the future, for example, what you will be like 10 years down the road from now, that's unknown to you. You have no clue. Other people around you in your life, they don't know that information as well. So that would be unknown. How you behave in an emergency that you've never actually encountered before. That would also be an example of unknown self. Now, the Johari window at times can be shaped just like this. And there's equal boxes. But the majority of the time, this is not the case. Usually when we first start a relationship, the public area is very small and the hidden area is a lot larger. Because guess what? There's a lot more that this person needs to know about you. So it may be very small, while hidden self may be a lot bigger. But as you develop and you develop more intimacy in relationship, as you get stronger, then you're going to have more opportunities to self-disclose and share information. The breadth and the depth throughout your relationship is going to change the window. So very early on, your relationship may look like this, where you have some open things, people know a little bit, but there's a lot of hidden. And that person doesn't know enough about you yet to know things that you don't know about yourself, so some blind, but not so much. And then unknown self, which kind of always stays the same in the Johari window, because there's still always something that you don't know, that you don't even know that you know yet. But as that relationship gets stronger, gets more intimate, maybe there's a lot more. There is a bigger open area, a bigger public area, because you know this information and the other person knows that information about you now as well. Maybe there's still some things that you don't always realize that would be in the blind, but you've been more comfortable and you've shared more information, so there's not that much hidden. And again, unknown, still unknown, because we don't know the unknown yet. So that brings us to self-disclosure. So self-disclosure is revealing information about you that others don't know. Keep in mind that just because you tell people information about yourself doesn't mean that you're now going to have a stronger relationship with that person. Sometimes they don't share information back, and so you feel jilted. Or sometimes you share really deep personal things about yourself and they take it as something minor when you took it as something very deep. And so because of that, it doesn't have as intimate of a level for them. And in turn, again, you may feel jilted. Next on our list of things to keep in mind, inappropriate information can undermine intimacy. So don't rush to share your deep dark secrets, because sometimes sharing your deep dark secret can scare people off. If you've ever told someone something and they looked confused or shocked and they stopped talking to you for a while, this was this principle in place. Inappropriate information can undermine intimacy. So you always want to wait to share negative information until you have a very strong relationship or until you need to tell that person. Also keep in mind that there are varying degrees of self-disclosure. No one self-discloses at the same exact rate. You and your best friend are going to share different things at different rates. Different cultures will share at different rates. I think here in the US we share relatively quickly compared to more Asian cultures. When it comes to gender, women are known to self-disclose more than men, especially when it comes to breadth, the amount of sharing that we do. And it's also, keep in mind, that it's easier to self-disclose online. Again, you just have to type, and you share this information, as opposed to face-to-face, where you have to deal with those nonverbals that can seem very scary. But just because it's easier doesn't mean it's always wiser. When it comes to peripheral things, those peripheral layers like the demographics, okay, go ahead and share online. But the central layers, your core values, that's probably best for face-to-face. Now when it comes to improving yourself, engage in self-reflection. This is probably one of the strongest tools in our arsenal that we can use to improve ourselves. In part 1, I gave you a lot of steps that you could take to improve your self-esteem. Well, those steps are an example of engaging in self-reflection. We also have the tool of mindfulness, where we can say, hey, I need to change this negative voice in my head that keeps saying I can't do something, giving me these negative self-fulfilling prophecies, and change that voice into a positive voice saying, I'm worth it, I'm a good person, I'm okay. By changing the voice and changing our story, we're able to engage in some self-compassion and understand that we're just human. So that ends chapter 2, considering yourself.